up tonight with people who will be helping you brand and people who are very good at branding with people who are very good at social media. I will do that with you tomorrow because you came back and sat where you were sitting. That's fine. There are 3 things that I would like for you to work on tonight for the next until 9 o'clock. I know last Friday night you left at 11:45. I think I'm giving you enough here that it will keep you busy. The thing I'm going to want you to work on tonight that we can go over tomorrow are these things. One is, now that you've done your brand, work with your table to answer those 3 questions. In other words, you talked about it, you wrote it down. Now begin to get your personal brand promise into a statement. We're not talking paragraphs here, right? Into a statement. Your project brand promise or statement into 1 sentence. And this can look like your vision, but remember, you're telling people what you're going to deliver to them. What is their experience going to be with you? And that's why we do that's why we get you thinking about brands before we have you do this. And then, remember the Venn diagram that Dory was talking about, it also, I can't do it, never mind. It also works, it works for how your personal brand and your project brand intersect at that area, and that's going to be your sweet spot for your best way to communicate. Where does your project brand and your personal brand intersect? And your personal brand involves who you are in your professional life as well, right? So if you are the head of Hispanic Achievers, Latino Achievers, sorry. I came around when it was called. So, if you're the head of that, you also are in the Y. So that's you're the head of Latino Achievers in the Y. You have this project that in your mind right now is just as big as the other circle, right? I mean, it's where you're spending a lot of your time. Now, to the rest of the world, it may look as if it's one part of the Y, but for you right now, it's that overlapping circle, and that sweet spot where the Venn diagram gives you that overlay is where it's going to be most important for you to think about how am I authentic to my brand, to the Y's brand, to what I'm doing now, and how do I use that to advance my project. Okay, so the third question is, how did the 2 connect for authenticity and for communication, but particularly for helping you feel really secure in who you are as you advance your brand. Okay, that's number 1, and I really think this is probably best done at tables, and then when y'all decide that you may want to begin to share, there are 3 assignments for tonight, and so I'm gonna suggest the order you do them in, but you can do them in whatever order after I leave, right, that you want. So, the next is, I want you to get started on the blog assignment. And why do I want you to do that? Because you're already thinking those kinds of words. You're thinking, how do I connect with the public the way a brand does? And again, you'll get a chance to refine this. We will talk about it tomorrow. But among other things, it's going to help me get a sense of how well you have identified your stakeholders. Because you're going to choose an audience for this blog, right? You're going to choose one of the stakeholder audiences that you have analyzed to write this blog. And let me see, I hope I don't mess this up. Okay, so I just posted this on Blackboard, my friend. I thought it was already posted on Blackboard, so I had to go back and redo it and post it again, but it's up there now. So this blog assignment, you can read about why we're doing it, you know why we're doing it. But anyway, and we're going to grade it on coherence, content, persuasiveness, and intimacy and connection. Now, this is your first crack at it, right? This is not the one we're going to do the final grade on. So I want you to work with each other, again at your tables, to do this. 500 to 1,000 word max. One specific topic related to your project. Talking about 500 words. Yeah. Just flow right out of job. Okay? So remember, this is jump-starting you. This is jump-starting you. And then add live links. Start helping each other think about what live links, and one of the suggestions is, are there, the people who are reading this blog, are there other bloggers? You know, remember the question on stakeholder analysis, who do they trust? Are there other bloggers that you might want to connect to? You know, like if you're really into, excuse me. If you're really into economics, I'm not sure any of us here, except maybe Catherine, are really into that. But if you're really into economics, then you can take them to two different viewpoints, right? You can take them to Paul Krugman, who is one-way economist, and you can take them to Samuelson, who's right. Samuelson, what the other one? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of an opposite. But the point is pro and con, or you can decide it's my blog. I'm not going to let anything in that's not supportive of my idea. Now, if you're going to bring in pros and cons, you need to help the reader, right? Help the reader understand why you're showing a pro. So, for the sake of simplicity tonight, I would not get real complicated. Just find some people that support what you're making, right? And we can talk about introducing straw men later. Okay, so then you use, this is practice on Monroe's motivated sequence. All right, this is on Blackboard. You can pull it up, and I'll leave it up here too. So this is an example of a I think it's 600 and something words, of a 628 word blog. Not written by me, by the way. So it was not written by me. So if you don't like it, it won't hurt my feelings. But what it does show is ways to do the 5 steps of the Monroe's motivated sequence around the whole idea of hunger in Nashville. Okay? So once you, and remember this idea, blogs work best if it's a single idea. A single idea about your project that you are advancing. So this is a time where you don't try to cram everything about your project into one blog. All right? So, and this is going to help us too, as you work through this, to see how well you've begun to think about symbols and numbers and data and human faces and stories. How have you begun to think about that? Because now, remember last weekend I said, okay, you told me how you're going to do it. Now we start actually doing it. So instead of talking about how you're going to communicate, you're going to start communicating. And that's what this blog is. And then, so those 3 questions, testing it out with your table, working with your table on your blog. You'll have to refine it yourself later in the second cut. But work with your table so that y'all can learn from each other as you go through this. And also to access the really good ideas of stories and numbers and things that people at your table have. And this, obviously, this is going to be some quiet time too. We're going to have quiet time because you're going to be first writing down some of your ideas. And then what we're going to do tomorrow is take a few of these and analyze them from the standpoint of message development. Because we're going to move into message development tomorrow. Your stakeholder analysis asks you to start thinking about the elements of message development. But this is the first time you're actually going to start putting them into a story communication in this block. Okay.
What did you title these assignments as?
Did I do what?
What did you title them as?
On Blackboard?
Yeah, located.
Blog assignment.
Got it.
Does it say second weekend blog assignment or something like that?
I see a blog assignment.
Blog assignment for communication plan?
Purpose-based.
Yeah, click on that and see if there's content in
Go
it.
into like the
There
top right
is.
where there's.
Yeah, it says blog assignment.
Do you have it?
Okay. There's a tab on the left that says blog assignment, and it's in it, okay?
It's the second to last one. Second to last link.
Okay, as you are writing this blog, so you're focusing on Monroe's motivated sequence, which we talked about last week and you began to play with. But you also need to keep in mind this new context for communication, right? So you're not just delivering me to call in. It's not one way or even two-way conversation anymore, right? So when you put the blog out there, lots of people are going to read it, right? So we talked a little bit, and we will look at the rest of this PowerPoint later, but we talked last weekend at the very end, and I just want to go over quickly the idea that public relations is evolving. And in many ways, the public relations industry was way behind the curve. They were still using newspapers and television ads when the world had moved on, right? They thought that getting an opinion piece was really good, you know, in the Tennessean. How many of you read opinion pieces in the Tennessean? Yeah, okay, well, I do too, but we're in the minority, okay? So PR firms used to think, oh, we'll just put it out there, right? We're gonna push them in the direction with this fabulous op-ed we've written. Now, some of you are gonna be writing op-eds, but they won't be just for the Tennessee. Instead, what Vandermolen says public relations needs to do is move from push to pull. So what you're doing with the motivated sequence is you've got to pull people in with that attention getter, and then you've got to get them to act with your call to action, right? Okay, so you don't want people to look at you as a promoter. One of the absolute worst things you can say to me is that you are so good at promoting what students do. I just want to stop. Because, yes, of course, I am good at communicating in the community what you're doing and connecting it to what's important to the community. But most people, when they say promotion, think about people who make t-shirts, okay? So, and that's the image of the PR world. Rah, cheerleader, promote, and I am all those things for you. But more important, I'm about informing the community what you're doing, right? So in your blog, think about, I'm not just saying, rah, look at me, I'm promoting this, but you're trying to get them to move with you because you're giving them facts. That's logos, right? Okay, so make sure you've got the data, facts in there in an understandable way. And then, this one's hard for me. I just loved controlling the message when I was at Cook. I mean, I could twist a reporter's arm to get them to put that in the way I wanted it to. I couldn't do that today, you know, for a whole bunch of reasons. I did have credibility. They knew I'd never lied to them. And so the reason I could get them to, you know, change the sentence or make us look a little better, or don't put Pepsi in the lead, put us in the lead, you know, or when I was in politics to make sure that my guy, you know, got the lead. The reason I could do that was I didn't sell them, I was going to say crap, I'll say crap anyway. I didn't sell them stuff that wasn't any good. I didn't sell them stories that weren't stories. I didn't try to sell them news that wasn't news, okay? That built my credibility. And I always told the truth, which, believe it or not, in the world of PR is kind of a defining thing to have that you don't like. But I had to go from control to simply getting to the point that maybe I could persuade them based on my credibility to do it. Okay. Now, in many ways, the left side of this is more about TV ads now, right? Don't you feel like TV ads are pushing and promoting and controlling, right? But because they really haven't made that transition unless they're in some kind of social media. And then from campaigns, now you will notice that I slipped up and used the word that you are creating a communication plan and campaign, all right? I did. It's just a factor of my age and what I used to do that I call it a campaign. But Vandermolen says that we need to look at it less as a campaign and more as continuing conversations. So the blog will begin a conversation that you hope will continue. Later in this PowerPoint, we'll talk about it tomorrow, he says you have to be in the conversation in real time, all of the time. In the conversation, in real time, all of the time. And so that's why it's not just a very set campaign that I am going to do this at this time to this audience. What you are doing has to be in the context of a broader conversation. Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay. And then finally, what happens with those continuing conversations? Instead of me saying, come hire me, I will influence that person, right, and get them to do whatever. What we're doing with PR now, with communication now, is developing a whole family, a whole community of influencers. And that gets to the tipping point, it gets to Applebee's America, where both of those authors talk about navigators and influencers. So you've got to have more than one. It can't just be one person, unless you really have to get the governor on your side and you know that one person will get in there. Okay, so there's always an exception to the way that these industries are moving because of social media. And I guess I'll come back to nothing, like Dory says, nothing can ever take the place of word of mouth. What you're doing here is looking at how do you establish in a very credible way word of mouth among a community of influencers. So I want you to, this is also posted, by the way, on under Vandermolen, and you can find this on Blackboard. So I want you to add your tables, answer those 3 questions, write your blog, and I realize that, you know, outline it. Begin to think about it. Talk to your table about it. You may have to, some of you are really quick writers and you may knock it out. Others may get the general idea and begin to think about how you want to tell the story in those 5 areas of Monroe's motivated citizens. And then finally, I'm going to do this before I leave because I love it. Let's see if this will work. This work.
I had to go to YouTube. Easy to find, but I couldn't get the link to work.
All right, so I'll do this. So if I cut and paste that, you think I can?
It should work.
All right. Mainly because we're going to be going over the syllabus in the morning, and I don't want to lose the chance to do this. I'm getting pretty good at this. I want everybody to notice how good I'm at it. All right. Yay! 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 All right. We talk about symbols. No, stop. And I need sound. We talk about symbols and how they define. Is it still this thing?
No.
I think we're supposed to follow the grid one that's on here.
I may blow us out.
Example of how ordinary.
We talk about symbols. And this is a very good symbol. I'm going to close with a very bad symbol and leave you to your work.
Kathleen, sorry.
It's
Constant
wait,
look
wait.
like. Answering questions, need attention better,
There you go.
satisfaction, action, and keeping it to 6 minutes. 500 words.
Very loud.
There we go.
Drag it, if you want to start, just drag it back. Yeah.
You'll put your neighborhoods
You
first
are such a humor.
with a safe walk to school.
Have a good day. You too.
When Bill Purcell goes to work as Nashville's next mayor, he'll put your neighborhoods first with a safe walk to school, the education our children deserve, and in every community, expanded neighborhood police patrols. He'll put sidewalks and schoolrooms before anything else. Bill Purcell, Nashville's neighborhood mayor.
Okay, we're going to just take a minute because I love this ad for all the things that it does. First time I saw it, I just couldn't believe it. So let's think about, I'm trying to find where did it go? No, I want to play it again. Okay, I just want to play it again after I talk about it. Okay, so what was the world that Bill Purcell was running in at this time?
Late 90s.
Right, but what was Nashville? What did Nashville just come through? 2 terms of Bill Bredesen, who was responsible and known for civic furniture, right? Okay, so big public projects, right? And in fact, Carl Dean stood here and said that Bredesen had focused on big public projects, talked about them, and then he said, and his predecessor, Purcell, had focused on neighborhoods, right? So, if you are coming off of a mayor who is, first, beloved in the city, I mean, has a really high favorability rating, and people something you can do to differentiate yourself.
Draw yourself close to home,
That's right.
smaller, more
Close to home.
intimate.
But also, because, and I want you to ask him about this tomorrow, because he was listening, because he was an East Nashville guy, because he understood, you know, kind of the grassroots part of politics too. I'm not saying Bredesen didn't, but he understood it. He had run for and had become majority leader, you know, in the Tennessee legislature. So he understood the grassroots and neighborhoods. And he knew too, remember what Dory said about break the mold? If everybody's thinking this, there's not another library you can build, there's not another, well, we'll talk about the business later, but I mean, there's not, there's not another Bridgestone Arena, there's not another Titan Stadium, and so if you have an ear to the ground and you know what people are talking about, you hear neighborhoods. But I have never seen an ad that captures an idea or somebody running on, and I'll go to the end of it, running on a symbol better than this. So it's not just neighborhoods, but what is it? Why is there no sound?
Because you're trying to
Okay, I want you to watch as he comes out of his front door, right? I mean, look at all the symbols in this really short ad. He comes out of his front door. He tells
When
us
Bill
what he has
Purcell
today.
goes to work as Nashville's next mayor, he'll put your neighborhoods first. With a safe walk to school, the education our children deserve. And in every community, expanded neighborhood police patrols. He'll put sidewalks and schoolrooms before anything else.
Sidewalks.
Bill Purcell, Nashville's neighborhood mayor.
Well, it was on the screen, they said sidewalks, what did they say, sidewalks, schools. What was on the screen was neighborhoods before everything else. Okay, then how did he make good on this? Got elected, he created the Office of Neighborhoods. Brenda Wynn headed it, Michelle worked in it, but he made good on the promise. So I'm hoping that you'll think about those things as we talk with him tomorrow. But I also want you to recognize that he took those skills. And when he went to the Institute of Politics at Kennedy School, which by the way is the greatest job in the world, being the director of the Institute of Politics, I really want you to ask him just about that a little bit. But he was a great leader of that, but when Drew Faust became president of Harvard, she tapped back into his political skills at the neighborhood level. Understanding neighborhoods, understanding how to bring about change, understanding how to bring institutions together to, in this case, to protect the neighborhood at the same time as Harvard moved into it. She tapped him to lead that initiative that was fraught. Well, I mean, people have been fighting about this for a decade in Boston and in Cambridge. And by the time he left, the Boston Globe was writing this editorial that was glowing about it and about that initiative. The same Boston Globe that had trashed it day in and day out for months. So you're going to be talking tomorrow to someone who has practiced his political and community building and communication skills to bring about change on a whole lot of, in a whole lot of arenas, from Capitol Hill here, to the mayor's office, to the Institute of Politics, to the president's office at Harvard. So I'm just really excited. The other thing that he has that I just find fascinating in listening to him talk about it is he has a view of the 21st century city. He gave a lecture over at the Baker Center about it, and I talked to him right before he went over there, and I've been trying to get a copy of his lecture ever since he gave it. But I think we're going to hear some of it, or parts of it, tomorrow, at least in some of the answers that we can pull out, and what he thinks. And he is not only a very successful elected official, he's also a public intellectual. You know, not a lot of people will say that, and he probably would get uncomfortable with calling him that, but he loves ideas. He loves the ideas that that he read about in Metropolitan Revolution. He loves the ideas as well as the doing of community change and development. So anyways, you can tell I'm excited about it. So I'm going to, if it's okay with y'all, I'm going to go check on my mother. And tomorrow morning, yes.
Go ahead. We'll,
No.
we'll ask. We're just trying
Okay.
to figure out the 3 assignments, but we'll go ahead.
Okay.
Were we supposed to do something with that?
No, I just wanted you to see it. That was the third.
Okay.
I just wanted you to see it. The blog using the 2 things that, and I wanted you to see this, but I decided I wanted to talk about it, so I'm going to get into it. But the other thing in playing that, you should start thinking about, I mean, now, some people look at that ad and go say, well, that wasn't very subtle. You can't be subtle in some places, okay? Some things you can't be subtle in. A 30-second ad, or however long it is 30, right? A 30-second ad is really hard to be subtle. The symbols are what you want people to remember. And that desk made it to the national news because it was such a good symbol. Okay?
We started to talk about tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. We're gonna do the syllabus and go through very specifically the communication plan assignment, what the pieces are. I'm gonna hand out the template. And then we're gonna take your stakeholder, that'll be 9. Then we're gonna look at stakeholder analysis until Mayor Purcell gets here. We're gonna do Mayor Purcell, we'll do message development, and I'm gonna leave at least an hour at the end of the day to talk about things that we can do better. And I want to, I'm gonna sit here and we're gonna talk about how we can make life more smooth, run more smoothly for you. Okay? Does that sound good? We're also going to talk about Ronald Reagan and David Gergen and Ronald Reagan, and we're going to do Group Genius. And during Group Genius, I'm going to be asking you to come in and talk to me individually about your projects. Okay? The mayor's here from Michelle. Is it 10 to 11:30?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just gonna do the syllabus in the morning. He's here at 10, then we'll do all that other stuff. Okay, so 10 to 11:30. And please have questions ready so we don't have to go through our general 20-minute warm-up. Y'all have about a 20-minute warm-up that I need to figure out how to cut through. And Jason won't be with us until tomorrow afternoon. I'm really sad about that, but he is off getting his solar energy training.
We submit them tomorrow, right?
Oh, no, you submit them. We're gonna work on them in here tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a work in progress.
Yes, this stakeholder analysis, I'm gonna show you where the stakeholder analysis fits in the overall communication plan and how you take it and you do the next step. And it's very hard for me, but I'm gonna do A, B, C, D. You know how hard it is for me, because I kind of come down holistically over here, right? But we're gonna take it step by step, and we're gonna do things like look at a good blog, look at a good news release, look at a good fact sheet, okay?